Hey everyone, my name is Eitan Buckman. I am the VP Marketing at Freightos, the online freight marketplace, and we are off-site for an episode of Masters of Trade, where we interview entrepreneurs who have actually built their own businesses and made stuff happen. Our promise to you is that we will keep this actionable, and we will make sure that we come up with good, solid advice that you can't get anywhere else, that just aren't like the crappy blogs that you keep on reading of people that haven't done it themselves. And that's why we're really excited to host today Chad Rubin from Scubana and so many other things, who's just out there, who has built businesses himself. Chad, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on. It's a privilege.
It's a pleasure, man. So I think the first thing, Chad, you went from investment banking to a vacuum company to a e-commerce platform. So I think you've seen everything from a million different sides. And what really struck us speaking before and doing some research, what we love, like we were talking here at Freightos about how when you got into your father's vacuum cleaner business, right? You just hopped on a plane and went out to China and started sourcing stuff yourself. So can you tell me a little bit about what triggered you to just like jump on a plane and do that, and what your experience was like out there?
Yeah, so well, my roots are my parents owned a vacuum store, and I was covering internet stocks on Wall Street. Anyway, I saw there was like just massive opportunity, especially during the Great Recession, where people just started spending even more money on the internet. My parents had a vacuum store; they were struggling. Right? When was the last time you've been to a vacuum store?
Yeah, not for
So
a while.
I said, Mom, Dad, you guys need to be on the internet. You guys need to be selling on the internet. This is 2008. And they're like, the internet? Really? Who's going to buy vacuum stuff on the internet? So fast forward, they didn't really have like so much of an interest. So I was like, okay, we should start a direct-to-consumer replacement accessory company selling vacuum cleaner filters and parts, accessories, etc.,
Right.
direct to consumer. And that's what we started back in 2008, 2009. And that transition was fascinating because there was nobody really going direct outside of like crucial memory.
So right when you looked out online, there was nobody else online selling direct to consumer vacuum parts.
No, no, but it wasn't just in my space or my vertical. It was
It was
every
anywhere.
space. Direct to consumer wasn't sexy. It wasn't in vogue yet.
Right.
But I saw like writing on the wall because people were competing on Amazon's marketplace, and it was just like playing musical chairs, right? Someone wins the buy box one day, then the next person, then the next person,
Right.
etc. And it was just like a pissing contest for price. So we
So
decided I was like, okay, how do I actually build my own brand and bypass this madness? And that was really what now is called private labeling.
so I mean, first of all, I think that's crazy because I look at nobody else selling online and I get scared, and you look out there and you said opportunity.
Mhm.
Did that require a leap of faith, or did you actually say like, no, I know this is going to work, and this is the right way to go?
Well, I'll tell you that I was laid off from Wall Street, and
Okay.
I came home and I was like, what the F am I going to do? And in fact, one door closed, another door opened. So I had to put food on the table. I had rent to pay. Like
Hmm.
my wife was actually my biggest fan and my biggest cheerleader. She's like, you should do this. Like you're passionate about it. You've identified an opportunity. You should do it. And then I just jumped in
That's
to the
that's
deep, to
that's
the
funny
deep
you
end.
say that. I always joke with my wife because I look at all these like startups like Facebooks and the Reddits, and they're all people that were single. Like, and I think like, oh, you could hustle all night because you don't have a wife telling you to like come home. But like you're saying, okay, you had the support. That's awesome. So your next step was to jump on a plane and get straight out to China. Like, how did you learn how to source goods? Like, how did you know what to look for, and what do you look for now when you're sourcing products?
Yeah. So learned, I mean, there's no school or college or university that can actually teach you this stuff. So you just learn it on the ground. Uh, Back in the day, Alibaba was much more nascent than it is now. And I just started doing research trying to find vacuum bag and filter manufacturers in China. And then I flew out there, met them in person, got drunk with the factory manager, and then started working with our first factory.
What did you drink? I'm just curious. Like, what's if
Oh,
you're going out to get
Chinese
someone drunk there?
whiskey, Chinese
Chinese
whiskey,
Chinese
Chinese
whiskey.
whiskey, and a lot of karaoke.
What's the quality control on the whiskey out there? I'm just
I don't think there's any control. It's interesting. I like brought some Chinese whiskey back to our office. A lot of it, we actually made sure that anyone that's new at the company takes shots of Chinese whiskey. It kind of tastes like tar and rubber simultaneously, and
I
it's
love
like
it.
just enough alcohol where it gets you like uh, out of your brain and more visceral, but it won't
Uh-huh.
take you over the edge. Like it won't make you like drunkenly walking down the street, not knowing like blackout sessions,
It's
etc.
it's a fine art. So on our sourcing whiskey show, we'll talk about that. But right now, I mean, if you're going out tomorrow and looking to source your products, what are the steps that you would take? Like what is the most critical thing that you look for when sourcing something?
Uh, first and foremost, you need to solve a problem. I always, and in my book, Cheaper, Easier, Direct, that's where I start. You want to make sure that you're solving problems and scratching other people's itch, whether it's your own itch or someone else's itch. So
Right.
initially, my itch was like, how do I get better prices on vacuum filters? How do I make them washable and reusable? And so first thing is solving a problem, and that's how we always source products. So one tactic that I'm using is I'm looking at search volume on Google and search
Hmm.
volume on Amazon and trying to find opportunity instead of using what's called bestseller rank
Hmm.
tools. And that's how, and so we start looking at search volumes and seeing, okay, this person is searching for something, but actually no one on the other side is solving that search. And that's
Interesting.
where magic happens.
Interesting. And do you find a dissonance between those search volume insights from Google and from Amazon?
That for sure. But Amazon's definitely more product heavy.
Right.
Obviously, 80% of product searches happen on Amazon. Uh, so yeah, there's going to be a big difference. And if you can actually capitalize on search volume, right, and it's kind of like arbing that, right? You
Right.
find volume, and then you find where there's a discrepancy or a delta, and solve for
Mhm.
that delta.
Cool. So, I mean, is there anything that if you were going out to China again, right? Like, let's say you find your perfect product, right? You hit it, like you just figured out something that you really need to bring in. I don't know whether you're going on Alibaba or jumping on a plane and heading out to China. What is it that you're looking for on a factory level? Like, who are you looking to work with? What's your ideal partner?
Ideal factory to work
Yeah.
with. So ideal partner. First of all, I always look for going direct to factory instead of going after trading company or sourcing agents.
So you don't
The
waste time at trade shows out in
Well,
China?
I think I haven't been to China in about 4 or 5 years. I'm actually taking a trip to Canton Fair. I'm speaking at Global Sources coming up
Hmm.
in Hong Kong, and that'll be my first time in four years or so. So I use Amazon's database as a gold mine to maximize opportunity and understand what the reviews are telling me and remix on those reviews to create great product.
Right.
Factory side, right, you need to find factories that actually are legitimate, that don't take a massive cut of margin like a trading company. So I try to go direct to the factory, and then I try to find trust. And the only way to find trust is to have more of an interaction versus a transaction with the factory.
Hmm. So you're building the relationship on a factory level as well.
So important. Like relationships win in China all day long.
Cool. Yeah, and I think we feel that working with freight forwarders as well. I guess one thing that I'm thinking about, I know that Amazon just like looks through those reviews as well to figure out what pain points are, and that's what they look for when they're private labeling goods, right? And then so basically, if that's what you're using as your data, you're potentially competing with Amazon. You're competing with other guys like you that are also looking on Amazon, looking at Google.
Mhm.
What tactics do you use to make your goods stick out, like your products stick out? Like how do you rise above the shaft?
So firstly, there's a lot of people that are on Amazon. There's a lot of private labelers, right? So there's
Right.
50, I think there's 50 new Chinese sellers joining Amazon a daily basis.
Right.
Amazon has 5 million sellers on the marketplace. So you need to stand out to win right now. And in order to stand out, you need to come up with a product that actually solves like is something different, right? So there's 100,000 toilet paper holders on Amazon right now. Seriously. And so everyone's copying everybody else because they're like using these BS. I'm not sure if you know these bestseller rank Chrome extensions, and you can see what the unit sold is and what the revenue is. And if everyone's using those same tools, which everyone is, we're all going to end up with the same product because you're like, hey, this person's selling a million toilet paper holders. I'm going to make toilet paper holders, and if I can get 10% of the market, that's awesome, right?
Right.
So we go with a different approach. Like I said before, it's based on search volume. It's solving problems. We're sort of making remixes of products and making them better, iterating on those designs.
Hmm. So will a typical product life cycle of yours be pretty short then, right? Because you're building, you're selling, and then you're iterating, or do you just find that product and
So we're actually finding problems, solving for it, and we come out with it. Our process right now is that we actually don't create a product where there's another Me Too on the market already. That's our new
Mhm.
standard operating procedure. A lot of people
So
out there are
which
like,
is not
yeah,
right. That's not like a typical like I'm thinking like Anchor, right? They do a fantastic job with their post market. I mean, they like their headphone adapters, earphones. They've done a great job there. They're not creating anything particularly new, right? They're actually doing a Me Too product in most cases.
so actually, the funny thing is I'm about to come out with a really interesting ebook, and I
Mhm.
did a ton of research on the top 10 Amazon sellers. 7 of them are actually Chinese private label sellers. Anchor has actually positioned themselves from being a commodity to actually
Mhm.
coming up with unique value propositions that you can't find anywhere else in the market. So they were just at
Interesting.
CES. They came out with
Right.
something called the Nebula, which is a
Mhm.
portable projector for your phone, I believe. It's like the size of a can of Coke, and it's awesome. And so what they did is they had a Kickstarter for it,
Right.
and they read the market. They raised over $1 million for this product, and they're bringing it to market. So they're like on the pulse of what the customer wants for sure now.
Okay, wow. So, that's so cool. Is there any way? It sounds like one of the things that's really distinct made them, I think, stick out a little bit more. Besides just reading the market, they've actually created a pretty compelling brand for themselves as a result, right? Like when you see Anchor pop up, there's some name
Mm-hmm.
recognition there. Is there any way that you feel very successful companies manage to create a brand on Amazon alone? Like, is there any brand building tactics specifically for Amazon that you feel work really, really well?
So yes, I think that I don't compare myself to Anchor. I mean, I like to look up to Anchor,
Hmm.
but I think that there's certain Amazon native brands that started off on Amazon that are actually now becoming household names.
Hmm.
And
Can you
I
give me
think
an example?
Anchor is one of them.
Right.
There's a few others on the market that I think also do a good job that are in the top 10 on Amazon. And
Hmm.
I mean, I think one of the ways that they do is they don't just come out with a commodity product where there's so many Me Too's anymore. They're actually
Hmm.
developing unique product that solves problem that differentiates themselves. I do think they're going to be copied over time, which is why you need to keep iterating. Like if iPhone only came out with the iPhone 6 and never came out with the iPhone 8, 9, or 8 or 10, right? Then they would be stuck and everyone would be essentially bypassing their where they're at.
So we're looking at like progressively shorter feedback loops, right? Because you come out with a product, more reviews, faster iteration, right?
Exactly. So I call it the Amazon product death cycle. So the window of product success on Amazon used to be like I used to
Right.
come out with a vacuum filter, and it would be 2 years or 2.5 years. So someone sort of is like, hey, oh, that's a really good product. I'm going to make that product.
Right.
And that window is now starting to shorten to 3 or 6 months. Like you literally have a lead time of 3 or 6 months, a window of opportunity until someone else copies your product.
That's harsh. So you're putting the same resources that you used to put into, do once every 2.5 years into 3 months. Doesn't that like eat into your profitability of developing private label? Doesn't that make it so much harder?
Yeah, it does make it harder. That's why only the strong are going to survive.
Right. Okay. So fast iteration, being really close to the market.
And
Uh,
I think the other piece that I think Anchor is learning, and I'm actually learning too, is first of all, no Me Too's on the market, but also once you invest in a product, you have a unique idea, and you invest tooling in it, it's harder for people to actually copy
right.
the product, right? So
Because
it's like, for
it's your
example, I just
defensibility.
invested in vacuum hoses, and I
Mhm.
invested $80,000. So if I invest $80,000 in vacuum hose tooling, it's much harder for other people to come in and copy that product.
And I mean, I guess right off the bat, as soon as you put in $5,000, you're already getting rid of probably 80% of your competition, right? Because there's only so many people that are even putting out any money. Right? Like most of these like bottom feeders are just jumping onto Alibaba and sourcing the
Mhm.
same exact crap that everybody else
Exactly.
is
They're going
sourcing.
off the shelf. So if your product is off the shelf, you're going to be the most threatened. If your product is unique and innovative and has utility to it that solves a problem, and you've invested in tooling where they can't just rip it off the shelf, you're a winner.
So and bringing that back to the very beginning, basically the only way you really have enough confidence to drop that kind of money in order to do the tooling is just really being really really close to the reviews, right? Just like reading the audience really really carefully.
It's reading the reviews, reading negatives of products. So you can find a Bluetooth speaker that's a projector and find all these negatives with it and take those
Right.
negatives and make sure your next design is iterating on those negatives. Make sure you're putting that into your listing to solve for those negatives as well.
Hmm.
Yep.
So I think one thing that Tomer mentioned to us when we were doing this last webinar was when they were launching their product, they just reached out. They went through Amazon leaderboards for reviews, and they went through Sears reviews, and they took usernames, found out who those people were online, and reached out to them for actual interviews. Right, like they did Twitter interviews and real life interviews. Is that something that you've ever considered doing as an Amazon retailer? Like, have you actually reached out to people that have reviewed and engaged them in conversation?
So the Amazon really has abolished incentivized reviews. I think
Hmm.
that it came out in November 2017.
Right,
And
and
so,
they're enforcing that pretty strongly, right?
yeah, like that's
Yeah.
against, so you can't incentivize someone to actually pay for a product in exchange for a review.
Hmm.
So the game has really changed, and like I think that at a certain point, reviews don't even really matter to get ranking. There's a lot of other things that have to happen, which I think is sales velocity on certain keywords that encourage people to buy, and then that's where the flywheel starts to kick in. So it's really all about sales velocity,
Gotcha.
because that's the only way
So,
down 15% of your product revenue.
right, right. Oh yeah. So I guess like moving out, one of the things we talked about before this call was basically at this point, like the e-commerce retail landscape is shaping up to be Amazon and everything else, right? And we've talked so much about just now about like the Amazon ecosystem and reviewing there. How do you shift beyond that? Like when you have a really successful Amazon product, is that when you start looking at selling on a different platform? What's like the for somebody that's just getting started, has decent volume on Amazon? What do you think the next step is?
Firstly, I believe that there's no need to wait to get onto other marketplaces. I think
Hmm.
that's a big misnomer. I think that if you're on Amazon, you should be leveraging your product everywhere else. So if you're new listening to this right now, it's all about real estate space. So in Monopoly, which is a game I love, how do you win in Monopoly?
You just double down. I mean, you're just building everywhere, right? That's what I.
You
I mean,
build
I'm not. I'm
everywhere.
right. Yeah.
The more you own in Monopoly, the more someone's going to land on your piece, and actually you have to pay up. They have to pay rent. It's the same thing to me in e-commerce. So Amazon's doing 50% of revenue right now. There is life off Amazon. There's another 50% of e-commerce of market share that you can capture off Amazon. So
Hmm.
whether it's Walmart, Jet, Newegg, Rakuten, Sears, eBay, your own website, even capitalizing on Facebook traffic as well, back to your own website is so important. And so the time is now to start, not later, but now, because essentially you're losing out on market share, on eyeball share, and wallet share.
So I mean, if you would tell a new starter, right, you can start selling on three platforms today, right? What are your top three choices?
It's really category specific. Some people love
Mhm.
House if you're selling furniture. Some people love eBay if you're selling trash.
Right.
Some people love so Jet. So it really depends. I would say my top three, just if you're asking me as a personal
Right.
share, is Amazon, of course, my own website, which is built leveraging Shopify, and then thirdly, I would say is Walmart, beating out eBay, which eBay used to be my third.
And in terms of actual fulfillment, would you use their fulfillment sources in most cases, or I don't know, use a platform like ShipBob? Like, what's your go-to?
So I don't use ShipBob. I use a third-party logistics company to do all my fulfillments.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think outsourcing your weakness is a very, very big important insight. And part of my success is really outsourcing all our weaknesses.
Hmm.
And one of those is actually managing a warehouse. So for FBA for our like 80/20 on Amazon, that's great, right? We use Amazon FBA for that. But for
Hmm.
all of our off-channel stuff, we have a 3PL picking and packing, connecting into Skubana, automatically routing those orders. They drop on tracking, they drop on inventory. Skubana sucks that in, and we spit that out to all the other channels.
Wow, that's amazing. Yes. So, I mean, do you feel like you made any like huge mistakes in this process? Right. I mean, I feel like everybody feels like they made mistakes, but if you could backtrack on one thing that you've really done, specifically on like the vacuum online sales, what would you backtrack on?
I don't know if I would backtrack or anything, because like every mistake I've made has been a learning experience I've used to get me where I am today. So I don't have regrets. I can tell you that I think not building a proper system in place early on had a massive impact on me, because like nothing was efficient, nothing was operationally sound. But now I don't know if you know this. I think I haven't gotten all my numbers for 2017 yet, but we'll be about 12 to 15 million in revenue, and I have one employee in the United States.
That's amazing. First, congrats, man, and that's awesome to hear. That's crazy. How did what processes did you feel like you needed to like which processes did you outsource beyond like your 3PL that really drove in a lot of help, like that really drove value for you?
Uh, so one is once we outsource the pick and pack, which is not my strong suit. My strong suit is
Mhm.
building businesses and marketing.
Mhm.
So I would say once you do that, then you need to take a hard look at your own life. I think a lot of people are like, hey, I want to outsource all these other things, add more things to my life that I don't even
Mhm.
have time to do anyway. Start with yourself. So I started keeping track, a diary in Get Google Calendar, of 2 week periods of everything that I work on.
Mhm.
And then I started looking at, okay, what are things that I really suck at? And believe it or not, there's a lot that I suck at. right? So what are things that I suck at? What are things that I just don't like doing? So I started making a list. What do I like doing? What do I hate doing? What's my bucket list? What's my effort list? Let's start looking at how I can take these weaknesses and convert them into strengths.
Hmm. And then you just went down there and started choosing the ones that you hated doing and that still needed to be done and outsource those.
And yeah, using technology to automate those as best as I can. And
Hmm.
then whatever I can't actually efficiently use technology for, that I needed actual human labor for, finding freelancers that actually can do it far better and faster and less expensive than my hourly rate is.
So, and this is actually something that comes up a lot with our customers, because a lot of our customers, their bread and butter is selling. They don't want to get involved in logistics and customs. When you look for a third party company to outsource to, how do you choose the right one and how do you vet them?
That's a great question. So it's really hard to find a good 3PL because there's so many, but most of them, some of them are super big, some of them are really small, and then they all have their own requirements. So I think you have to go back to yourself and look at your own product. Is your product high touch or is it low touch? Is it an expensive good or a cheap good? Or do you want to have a 3PL on the East Coast or the West Coast? Do they have a proper warehouse management system in place? Can they connect to our own operation system like Skubana? All these things matter when you're choosing a proper, and can they do your FBA workflow and process all your off Amazon orders, and at what price, and does it make sense? So there's so much that goes into it. My 3PL is on the East Coast right now,
Mhm.
and I really train them on my process.
So it's I guess it's like going back to the same idea, the Chinese thing. It's building that relationship and making sure that you guys both get each other and understand what you're looking for. A
For
lot of that
sure.
process. Yeah.
Yep. But I think for people that are listening, in e-commerce or just retail right now in 2018, you need to be a systems thinker to win. You have to think about, how can I build a plug and play operation that's a system? Because everyone's going to copy your product, right? Anyone can copy your product. It's very, very difficult to duplicate or replicate someone's internal system that's proprietary, and creates a much more defensive position to succeed.
So you dropped the word proprietary. So I'm not going to ask you. In my head, I was like, okay, Chad, what's your system? But I'm not going to go
I'll
there.
share my system. I'm cool. I'm all
Do
about
it.
sharing.
All right, let's hear it. What's the system?
So like I said, so we optimized my own life, right? Looked at what was inefficient. I have VAs take care of everything for me. In fact, to the point where my virtual assistants were responding to text messages from my wife, and I got in so much trouble for it, right? It was like they would write back, like they would have a reminder to say, "I love you, babe, XO moi," and my wife is like, "That is not you. You're not responding to my text messages. Our text messages are sacred ground. You can't do that. Like, get them off text." So anyway, so I have these
If I get a
VAs.
text message from you that says "I love you, moi," that's a VA gone wrong, right? I shouldn't read into that. Yeah, I shouldn't read into that. Okay.
That's sacred now. So text messages are really the only part of my life that's completely not transparent, right? So like my VAs look at my emails, they look at my everything. They're
Wow.
really integrated into my day-to-day work-life integration, because I'm an entrepreneur. There's not a lot of work-life balance that happens.
Mhm.
As you can see, I'm working from home right now.
Right.
So, okay, so first is you optimize your own life. Then you optimize your employee's life. Because if you can get your employees to say, "Hey, I really hate doing this, this, and this," like other companies give out free lunch, right? Or gym memberships. Uh, for us, we give a virtual assistant to all of our employees.
Wow. It's a
Because
great perk.
essentially, I think that's a big point. If you can use VAs to help your employees get that ball down the field, then time is never
A blocker. Right.
a blocker to your success.
Wow. Okay. So you're going through your life. You're systematically. You're looking at the things that waste time, the things that somebody else can do more efficiently, or that that you'll save time doing. Your feedback loop. You're all about the reviews. You find you do your buyer research. You find the right product. You bring it online. You start selling it, and then you start productizing that using all the right technology to make sure that you're not touching things. And I imagine that's what frees up the excess time to work on new projects, right? Like you just get something, you productize it, you move on.
Yeah. So once you have a system in place, so we use Skubana that automates at least 7 people, and I'm co-founder of Skubana. We developed it out of my own problem that I had running my business online, which automatically integrates to all the marketplaces, shopping carts. But here's the kicker: it will actually create purchase orders awaiting my approval with a bow on top. So I have 1,000 products and I'm selling on 20 different channels. So think I would have to analyze all the velocity across all these channels, and then I would have to have an employee go in and manually create a purchase order to forecast and demand plan. So those days are over. So we use technology to automate the purchase order process, algorithmically creating POs at the right time, at the right place, with the right quantity. It never goes to the bathroom, right? It never gets tired. Then once you have a tech stack that automates everything with a system, then you start delegating the inefficient stuff to people like bookkeeping, reconciling that, or putting up certain Facebook posts, which by the way, now you can automate as well. So there's a lot of automation you can do. You just have to identify it first, automate with technology, outsource the rest. We're using a project management system called Basecamp, which I love.
Love them too. Great communication too. Their whole brand voice is phenomenal.
I saw the founder speak in New York at an EO. I'm an EO, entrepreneurship organization, and he was awesome. And I literally bought the software the following day. I bought an annual package, but I was using Trello, I was using Slack. Things would get lost, using all these different systems, and we unified it with one system with everything in one place. And now nothing ever gets lost in transit.
So speaking technology, what are the other core components of your technology stack for successful e-commerce sales?
So I have a lot of softwares I'm using. So a couple. So we use Cubana for e-commerce automation and operations. We use Basecamp to essentially manage workflow with virtual assistants. A few other ones I think that are very important to our success would be I use Zoom for essentially whenever we do anything, we do a video of it first. We record it on Zoom. We put it on Dropbox, and we send it to the VA to create an SOP. The SOP is then held, the standard operating procedure is then held in Basecamp. I would say another one would be Boomerang. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Boomerang.
Email automation, snoozing.
As CEO, I get so many emails. And so how do I automate email and sort of take that cognitive processing power off my plate because I have so much other things to think about? Boomerang has been a game changer for me. And then Evernote is great for like notes, and it kind of becomes an external brain housing all this information that I can quickly find without having to store it up here.
Right. And in terms of, I guess, like Amazon pricing automation, research, what technology tools would you recommend there?
So we use, for search, like let's just say I was solving for a problem and finding what people are searching, I would use Moz Keyword Explorer, M-O-Z, for Google. For Amazon, I've been using Merchant Words. It's a cheap tool. You can look at search volume. I'm using Amazon.com database probably more than anything else, going right direct to the source. And that's really it. There's really, I look at bill of lading research, like Panjiva.
Yep, that's great. Yeah, it's hard to get data clarity there, right? There's like a lot of noise in their databases that we found. But yeah, that's
we do a lot of enrichment. There's a lot of enrichment to be done.
So yeah, I'm going back to one thing you dropped a little bit earlier, because people know the Jet, Newegg, Amazon. There's a little bit of a difference between those solutions and selling directly from your own website, right? Like suddenly you're building your own brand. You can say anything you want. You own your own reviews. You own your own data. Do you think that's like a first step, like building your own website, building your own assets, digital assets? Do you think that's more important than like the marketplaces?
I don't think that it's a binary decision of zero and ones. I think that you can sell on the marketplace and you can sell on your own website, and you can do it simultaneously. It's not either or. I think you should do both. Especially if you have your own brand, you need to have your own website because that essentially helps you get brand registered on Amazon anyway.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, this is incredible. I feel like there's just like so much information coming at me. It's like rapid fire, and I'm like asking the questions, which is easy, but like it's just like all coming. So tell me, because we're nearing the end of this, can you tell us a little bit about what it is that Skubana does, and how we have a good 30% of our users are Amazon sellers. A lot of them are e-commerce sellers. What is it that Skubana does to help companies like that grow?
So Cubana is an operations platform. So how it came about was there's all these different apps you can use to run your business in e-commerce. A shipping app, an inventory app, a purchase order app. Then you need to do your FBA workflow, Amazon Fulfillment by Amazon separately. So we decided to unify everything in one place. And when you unify all these separate, disparate applications, you now have business intelligence that will change the game. So the what that we do is orders, inventory, purchase orders, but the why why we exist is because now you have data at your fingertips that will change the game and give you an edge up on your competition. So we're plug and play, like there's no custom development required, but we're also not built for smaller sellers. It's a software really, it starts, essentially Skubana starts at $999 a month and goes all the way up for sophisticated sellers that have problems that need to be solved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and when did Skubana launch? How long have you guys been around for?
So we've been building for, prior to launching maybe 2 years ago, we've been building for another year and a half, 2 years. And now we have about 24 people across New York City and New Jersey.
Well, all right. It feels good building an empire like that, right?
It does feel good, and it takes a lot of work. And software is
Yeah.
very different from e-commerce.
Right. Yeah, it's a different ballgame. So, I mean, before we end, I guess one last question is like, if you're talking to somebody and they want to look 5 years ahead and they want to plan, a business that will be a wild success out in 2023, I guess. What one piece of advice would you leave them with, right? Like they want to build a huge business one day. What would you tell them would be the best piece of advice to like put them on that path?
Well, I think I started off in the beginning saying that you need to solve a problem. So, and if you, the bigger problem you solve, the more reward and the larger the payout. So I would start with that. I would certainly check out problems. It's not even just looking at reviews on Amazon, right? Going on Reddit, finding your passion. I like taking passion and problems and combining them together. So when I first started, do you really think I'm passionate about vacuum cleaners? No,
Well,
not really.
people
Not
ask me if I'm
particularly.
passionate about freight. I think it grows on you, right? Like you find something, you get involved in it, and you just like you find the passion there, right?
Yeah, true. But I was like, how can I take this one to the next level, right? How can I actually say, okay, I'm selling widgets online. What about if I sold widgets that I actually really cared a little bit more about? And so I took vacuum filters and I was like, okay, what's the next logical place I would want to move to? And that's coffee filters. I love coffee. I drink it every morning.
What do you use to brew? I'm an AeroPress guy.
AeroPress. So
I'll
we
say
make
it.
reusable. So funny, we make reusable, washable AeroPress filters.
I have a
Uh,
reusable washable AeroPress filter. Chad, I might be using your filters, man.
nice,
This is
nice.
magic.
So first of all, I love a cortado. When I brew internally, just regular coffee in the morning, I actually toggle between, depending on my mood, AeroPress number one, Chemex number two. I have an electric coffee pot that's a Bonavita that goes to a certain temperature, so it extracts more of the essential oils of the coffee.
Okay. I was
And
about to
by the
call you out
way,
on cheating, but okay, good.
I make all the filters for all those machines, right?
It's so fun.
And there's no
But it's so
coincidence,
fun.
though. There's no
Right.
coincidence.
It's the passion.
It's the passion. I was like, okay, I want to solve this problem. Why are AeroPress filters, if you look at AeroPress filters on Amazon, the reviews are saying that they're bleached. Well,
Right.
how do you solve for bleached filters? Well, you can either come up with a reusable filter or you can start making natural AeroPress filter paper, which, by the way, we also started doing.
Amazing. All right. Well, Chad, this has been incredibly informative, just like a jam-packed full of actionable insights, and we really appreciate it. Everybody, head out to Skubana's website. Chad mentioned he'll be in Global Sources. Chad, you'll also be in Prosper, right? You'll be
I'll be
out
at
at
Prosper
Prosper?
Show. People can
Amazing.
use Rubin 18 for $100